This is the last section of the fingerprint notes. This is going into a little bit of the history, how to lift prints, and what are the different techniques to use at a crime scene for lifting prints and detecting prints. Initially, the very first part of identifying and using fingerprinting in a crime scene was the Henry system. Sir Edward Henry completed the system in 1899. It's not necessarily used now because you would have to have every single fingerprint left at a crime scene for a criminal to use this print. Sir Edward Henry did notice that everyone had individual fingerprints that were different. And the way that he categorized fingerprints was he would give a certain number score per different finger type on the different types of prints. So if it was a whorl on a certain finger, it would get a higher score than other whorls on other fingers, and not necessarily something that would be used to identify it, unless you had the entire handprint. And that's not always going to be the case when it comes to lifting prints at a crime scene. AFIS is the Automated Fingerprint Identification System. This scans and digitally encodes fingerprints, storing that information in a massive database. The current computer can scan through a batch of 500,000 prints in less than 1 second. This is something that is going to be collected as people are arrested or being brought to courthouse, or something that is going to be needed to be collecting it. This isn't something that is a national database for every single citizen or individual in the United States. Different ways that technology can capture the prints. What you've probably seen before is people using ink pads and rolling them onto different types of note cards. That's not necessarily how majority of police stations collect prints. A lot of them will use a live scan such as this, where they'll use the individual finger, or they will use the whole palm, because your palm does have its own print as well. I haven't mentioned this before, but your feet also have their own prints too, and toes are acting the same way as the fingerprints do, where they're all different. There's 3 types of prints that you would categorize prints as. There is a patent print. This is where it's something that is going to be visible, like you could walk into a crime scene and you see the actual fingerprint. A plastic print is not very common. This is something where someone has left an indentation and it has like an actual 3D print into something. So there's very few times when it actually is something that is like a mold of a print. Majority of the prints that are going to be lifted are called latent prints, and these are invisible and they can't be seen unless you have special lighting or you're processing them, such as using black powder, lasers, or superglue. Finding the prints. There's different tools. This one at the bottom is called RUFUS, Reflected Ultraviolet Imaging System. It can be something where, if you've seen it on CSI or on a video where they put special glasses on and they just use this tool to actually find the print. Imagine going into someplace like a warehouse or a building and you're trying to find latent prints. Well, you just can't walk around and just put the black powder everywhere. That's going to be a huge mess and just not necessarily the best thing to do. So this is going to be a way of identifying where prints are. Then after that, you can use the cyanoacrylate or you can use the powder to actually lift the prints. This system can detect fingerprints in the most non-porous surfaces prior to any kind of treatment or after cyanoacrylate. Cyanoacrylate is the super glue, and we're going to discuss it in the next one. When powdering a print, you can use several different ways of doing the powdering. So the image in the top right is going to be a magnetic print. This is going to be a little bit, it's more expensive. It's not used very often because it is an expensive powder, but it's going to be something that is going to keep it more contained, and you're not going to have a massive amount of powder thrown all over the place. But majority of the time, the black powder is going to leave a black print. So if you're trying to lift prints off of something that is black, like a gun, you would need something that's more like a highlighter color, something that's going to be more of a contrast. After the powder is applied, the print has to be photographed, and then it's going to be lifted using tape. The lifting requires a steady hand and does not smear the print. Cyanoacrylate is also known as superglue or cyanoacrylate. So in the crime scene forensic world, they don't really talk about it as like superglue fuming. They say cyanoacrylate. This is going to be something that's used on non-porous materials like metals, electrical tape, leather, and plastic bags. You can use a handheld wand with cyanoacrylate at the crime scene. So this is going to be also something that's going to be permanent. It's not something that can be wiped away. So the black powder printing or identifying is going to be something that can be cleaned up. If you're using cyanoacrylate, it is going to make it as like super glue applied to the individual prints. This is the technique of how something would be used to identify the print, and these are the prints that are going to be produced from it. Super glue is going to be a white. It's going to be leaving a white residue, and so you have to think about it as like it's the fumes that are going to be attaching to those oils that are left in the prints. It may take a couple hours before the prints are dried and can be used. Also, super glue cyanoacrylate fumes are toxic, so they would need to be used in a fuming chamber. Those two prints are not always going to be lifting good quality prints off of things that are porous. And when you think about porous, think about things that are not metal, not aluminum, not plastic. These could be paper products like money. The other way that's going to be using this is going to be using iodine fuming. This has a different technique. You would also have to photograph it as soon as it starts to show up because it can fade really quickly. You have to have low temperature heat is required to sublimate the iodine crystals into fumes. Then you pass the fumes over the surface and it needs to be photographed right away. Here's some examples of iodine fuming and what the product would be. The middle picture where you have the yellow and the black. Here in this area, this is what is produced, and then this is where you would take the black powder and go over it after it's produced. Over here are some things that you could use at the crime scene. So basically the heat from your breath is going to heat up the iodine crystals and create the iodine fuming. So it can be used at a crime scene. Ninhydrin is another thing that can be used on paper products. This is going to be detecting the amino acids that are left in the sweat. And this is going to be not a fuming situation, but basically spraying a liquid onto something and letting it dry. It does take several hours for it to appear, but it won't fade either. Silver nitrate is another thing that can be used to detect fingerprints, and it's going to be detecting the salt deposits in sweat. And this can also be used as a non-porous product. It's going to be the last thing that's used because it's of the staining components. It also needs to be exposed to ultraviolet lighting too.